Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, I have more stories involving the Chicago Mothman and another story of a pell crawler. Both stories are truly out there, folks, so let's get into the first article titled Bat-Winged Humanoid Collides Over Thornton Quarry, Illinois, Chicago suburb. Hear how the Mothman was once again seen in Chicago. In the 2016 to 2017 timeframe, Bob Anderson, host of Bob After Dark, was driving home from work along I-80 near Thornton Township, Illinois, when he encountered something hovering above the massive Thornton Quarry. What began as a deeply personal, emotionally charged drive home turned into a strange sighting of a winged humanoid, one that Bob later described as life-altering. Let's get into the actual article now, folks, and read exactly what Bob Anderson actually saw and experienced. Let's get into it and hear exactly how it went down now. My name is Bob Anderson. I host the paranormal podcast Bob After Dark, where I talk about legends, lore, and the supernatural. I am also a paranormal investigator and cryptozoologist, and I believe I may have seen what people call the Mothman. This happened sometime around 2016 or 2017. I was closing up at work one night, and at that point in my life, I was not in a good place. I was struggling badly, and that night felt like I had reached a breaking point. I got off work and was driving down I-80 toward Indiana, where I lived near the state line outside Thornton Township, Illinois. There is a large rock quarry that the highway passes over. I was driving through that area near Willamette City at around 8:30 at night. Before the sighting, the music coming through my car radio had already started to feel strange. All of the songs seemed to be about staying alive, moving on, and continuing forward. I remember hearing songs like the Bee Gees and other upbeat songs with that kind of message. At the time, I didn't want to hear it. I was upset, exhausted, and emotionally overwhelmed. Then my radio turned to static. Bits and pieces of music and sound were coming through, but the signal was broken. I became even more frustrated because it felt like one more thing going wrong on an already terrible night. I looked out toward the passenger side of the car, toward the quarry, and that is when I saw it. There was something hovering over the rock quarry. At first I thought it might be a large bat in that area. Strange animal sightings are not completely unheard of because of the nearby industrial zones, rail lines, oil refineries, and steel facilities. Sometimes animals, end up where they do not seem to belong, but this was not acting like a bat. It seemed to hold itself in place. It was not just flying past, it almost appeared to focus on the area where I was driving. I pulled over to the side of the road. 3 other motorists also pulled over. We did not speak at first. It was like all of us had seen the same thing and reacted at the same time. The figure was dark, with a body that seemed almost human in shape. I would estimate it was around 5 to 6 feet tall, though it was at a distance and the light was fading. It had large wings with a wingspan of at least 6 feet, possibly larger. The body was not as bulky as an animal's. It looked toned, lean, and strangely human-like. If it had been standing on the ground, I would have expected it to walk upright. The wings were extended. I cannot say for certain whether they were flapping. I cannot say whether it was hovering, soaring, or somehow holding itself in place. I just remember the wings, the human-like form, and the eyes. Indeed, folks, I can believe that as well. Maybe something was basically causing him to basically just focus on these aspects. Remember, the radio, he says, basically was, playing all these songs with an upbeat nature, folks. And you get the feeling that something was almost directing it. Perhaps it was also directing him to basically pay attention to certain aspects and not basically others, is what I'm thinking here, folks. He was paying attention to the eyes and shape of this thing, but maybe missing something else, due to some sort of influence from this entity, perhaps. But let's move on and talk about this a little later. The eyes were red and glowing. Its body appeared dark, maybe black, gray, silver, or even brownish in places. It was difficult to make out the exact details because of the distance and the lighting, but its human-like quality stood out. I tried to get my phone out to take a picture. It felt like I had been watching it for a long time, but in reality, I only had a few moments. By the time I got my phone ready, it was gone. I cannot say for whether it flew away or vanished. It was simply no longer there. Afterward, one of the other motorists looked at me and said something like, "That was a thing, wasn't it?" And that's a good thing here, folks, that there were other people there. Too bad our witness here, Bob, didn't basically take any of their names down, but he does have these other people to back him up. Too bad we don't have a name to go with these other people, folks. So even though it isn't just one person seeing this, because we can't confirm these people actually saw it, it might as well be. That's the thing there, folks. But If we believe him, yeah, then there were other witnesses to this event. Let's move on now. I agreed that it was strange. Then the person told me they hoped I had a really good day. That simple kindness hit me hard after everything I had been feeling that night. Those words overwhelmed me. I broke down emotionally. I do not know fully how to explain it, but the music, the sighting, the other witnesses, and that moment of kindness all felt connected somehow. Later, Sweet Dreams by Eurythmics and Annie Lennox came through the radio. The whole experience felt more than just seeing something strange in the sky. It felt like meaningful. It felt like something had interrupted the course I was on. I didn't know exactly what I saw. I cannot say with certainty that it was the Mothman, but I believe I saw a winged humanoid. I believe that night changed my life, B.A. I would have to say I kind of agree with B.A. here, folks, that, yeah, most definitely this changed his life. It would change probably most people after seeing this, folks. But then again, a few skeptics might say that this was just a bunch of balloons or maybe just a drone, which is possible, but we can't say for sure either. But certainly out there, folks, and gives you food for thought that, yeah, something like this could happen. And would definitely leave you with questions and change your life if you did have it happen to you, folks. That's what I honestly believe. Either way, let's move on to the next article. Retired Shenandoah National Park Ranger recalls pale crawler humanoid encounter. Let's read this encounter once again with pale crawlers, this time, in a national park. A retired Shenandoah National Park Ranger has come forward with a disturbing account from April 2022 during his final year working in the Virginia wilderness after campers began reporting strange late-night noises that agitated their dogs. The ranger encountered something pale, lanky, and humanoid near his quarters. What followed left him shaken, armed, and searching for evidence that never fully materialized. So let's read on and hear about this event, folks. I had been employed at several different state parks around the country, but for the past 10 years, I had worked as a park ranger at Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. I retired this past fall, and I do miss a lot of things about the work. Something happened in the spring of 2022 that I was not prepared for at all. I have always been very attuned to the sights and sounds around me. I'm curious and cautious, but I have rarely been afraid of much out there. The summer before, in 2021, we had a remarkably calm season. There were hardly any animals we had to deal with, and it seemed as if the bears and other common pests were leaving everyone alone. Then in April 2022, people started hearing noises around their campsites very late at night. These sounds would drive their dogs insane, but nobody had actually seen anything unusual. It almost felt as if whatever it was had been probing the area nightly, checking things out, but staying far enough away that we could not catch sight of it with our spotlights. That sounds like almost intelligent behavior there, folks. Though I suppose it could be an animal, but let's read on and hear this guy's story before we come to any conclusions about this pale crawler. Then one night, as I was walking back to my quarters, I began to feel a profound sense of dread and unease. There was a creepy, malevolent feeling in the air. I looked around and scanned the tree line before making the final loop toward the door. I scanned the area from left to right from my fire pit to the table. About 20 feet behind the table, I saw a naked, extremely pale, almost gray figure. There was a large boulder behind it, so the figure was partially blended in and not easy to see. If I had not been deliberately scanning the area, I probably would not have noticed it. The thing had a humanoid quality. It was very lanky and completely still. It was directly facing me. And I think I probably would have run away, folks. Just basically not out of fear, though I probably would be afraid, folks, but for the fact that, I think this thing was dangerous. And if I wasn't scared, folks, I would not want to basically be face this thing down, especially how most pale crawlers are described like horrible aliens. Then our eyes met and I felt my heart drop. I just went cold. As I said, folks, some people might not feel fear, but they definitely would get out of the area after, seeing this entity. But let's continue. I probably only stared at it for a few seconds, but it felt like several minutes while my brain tried to process what I was seeing. It stood somewhere between 5 and 6 feet tall. Its shoulders were low and slumped. Its body looked frail and thin. It was crouched down on all fours. I could not make out many details of the face other than the large black eyes. Its mouth appeared to be open, and it was making strange clicking sounds. It is hard to describe. The fear and shock that came over me were terrifying, and I could not think rationally at all. I slowly pulled my phone from my pocket and snapped a photo. That seemed to startle it. I watched it jump up onto the massive rock and then climb the tree next to it. The speed it displayed was astounding. I ran the rest of the way to my door as my life depended on it. Once inside, I grabbed my shotgun, loaded it, and aimed it at the door. I sat there with my heart hammering, waiting for the doorknob to turn or for the window glass to break. As I said, folks, yeah, this is where most people will be completely frightened and stuff like that. Though I think most people would have probably locked the door, but still been afraid the glass was going to break and something was going to come in. Yeah, getting a shotgun was smart. Either way, let's continue with this fascinating story. I called for backup. I waited for what seemed like hours before two of my colleagues arrived. I must have sounded like a blithering idiot trying to describe what I had seen and what had happened. I was usually very calm and collected, which is probably what made them believe me. The three of us were armed, and we went back outside together to look for it. We stayed out into the early morning expecting to see or hear something, but we never did. Eventually, around 4 a.m., we lowered our guard and went into my cabin to try to get some sleep. Now, this is a good thing to hear, folks, that our experiencer had two good friends that would spend the rest of the night with him. Now, do you think that you would have been able to get back to sleep, or even attempt to sleep, after seeing this, thing, this pale crawler, folks? Or do you think you would have spent the rest of the night shaking in your bed? I think a lot of people would probably end up just doing that. But let's get back, once again, to this guy's account. The next morning, I could hardly believe what I had seen the night before. I kept obsessively searching the area in daylight for any shapes, objects, or items I might have mistaken for the creature, but the only things around were my normal campsite items. I really wished there had been another witness to validate what I saw. I had to make my report, but I had so little, substance that I felt ridiculous. There had been no other signs, and nobody had been harmed. There were only the strange noises people and dogs had been hearing, along with my single sighting, so what could I really say? The photo I took was dark and grainy. You could barely make out the rock, let alone the creature. I kept watch the following night again to see if I could spot anything, but there was nothing. And I'm not surprised there, folks. This guy saw something, and it could have been there, folks. There was one account of this woman seeing something that looked like the pale crawler this guy had seen, folks, only bigger. And it almost seemed to basically give off this telepathic power saying that you can't see me, you can't see me. So maybe it was there, but he couldn't see it because it had literally glamoured itself invisible to him and others. Maybe. But let's read on. The thought that this thing could still be out there observing us was very unnerving. It was difficult to warn people about anything concrete to tell them. I attempted to have the photo analyzed by several professionals, but the pixelation and darkness made it useless. I'm not surprised. He took a photo of it, folks, but yeah, once again, it's just a nothing burger. I'd love to see the photo itself, folks, even if it was just a blurry mess. Maybe I could make out something. At least I hope to think about that would be the case here, folks. But yeah, it's probably just more blurry images. That's the problem. I can hope that maybe one day we can actually have a real image of something like a pale crawler, folks, a Bigfoot, something that definitely proves these entities. But we need more than just an image or even a video, folks. We need actual physical proof. So I would probably think that maybe someone would have to shoot one of these entities and bring its body to a bunch of researchers and scientists to verify it. Then again, he might actually be arrested for murder. I mean, it could be that these pale crawlers are humans, folks. Maybe just a bunch of tall, pale, skinny guys, basically, who, for whatever reason, basically run through the woods butt naked. Maybe they're wearing costumes. I would not basically be surprised if one day we get basically someone who shoots someone and we find it was all a hoax, and that it was just some guy trying to prank people, but he got shot for it. There's definitely a possibility of that. But what about the first story with what happened there with this, Mothman, folks? Could it basically also be a hoax, or do you think this guy actually saw something? Because you get the feeling in the story, folks, like he was led to that point to witness this thing along with these other people, because you get that feeling. Very interesting. But we're now at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics They're Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in descriptions or the chat to go subscribe me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to part the bell. They'll give you all future notifications. And please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Until next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.